there, I'm Clarence Waldron. Welcome back to Black Muse. Tonight's guest is Denise Nicholas. She is an icon, she's a legend, she's a trailblazer, she's the best-selling author of a new book that she wrote, Finding Home, a memoir. It is fantastic. Along the way, we did meet her back in 1969 when she starred on the hit TV show Room 222. And then she did In Heat of the Night opposite Carroll O'Connor. Several great movie roles, most notably Let's Do It Again with Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby. But I'm going to stop now and give the stage to Miss Nicholas. Hi there, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, a pleasure, a pleasure. Let's start at the very top. What inspired you to write your life story at this point? Why did you do this?
Well, it wasn't really my idea. It was my publisher Doug Seibold's idea. I was um, looking forward to working on something that I started writing years ago, put aside when I got busy with other things. I wasn't able to put that story together, but it still stayed in my head. So I did a short story that's kind of an introduction to that book that has not been written yet. But I was more going in that direction, and my publisher asked me if I was ready to do a memoir. And I always joke and say, I say this every time somebody asks me that question, what do you think? I'm getting ready to croak. Is that why you want me to do this memoir now? And so he, of course, was not waiting for me to, sorry, but anxious that I was going to croak in 5 minutes. But he
Mm.
encouraged me because, as I said to him at the time, once we kind of came to an agreement that I would do it, that I was pretty shy. And I say this a lot about putting my mistakes on blast and talking about things that are very difficult for me. I am a private, very private person. So, but I've lived a public life. So I have to put those two things together. And that's what this book, I think, does for me. It allows me to dabble into the things that were most difficult for me, but it also shows you how interior I am, how much more inside I am than people think. People think if you're in Hollywood and you're an actor, you're always out on stage and everything is that. But
Yeah.
a lot of actors, I think, have more. The personality is probably closer to mine. They're shy, you know, and it's acting. If I make you
Mhm.
believe I'm not shy, I've done a good job. But yeah, I'm very quiet. I stay home a lot, and I like this life. I like the way I am now.
Got it. So, what do you want us to take away from the book? What do you hope the readers would get from it?
Well, I think uh, my journey my journey has been a great mixture of heartache and joy, and I think that um, the heartache part of it is the part I hope people take in and factor in, that I went through these things as difficult as they were, and I got through them, and I came out on the other side probably a stronger person. So when you have these difficulties, don't run, face it. It took me a long time to come to the decision to face it by getting some therapy and getting some help, but don't run, because those a lot of times those kinds of difficulties are the grist that will evolve into something creative. It does that for me for sure. If you're not a writer or an actor or a painter or something, maybe it just makes you a richer person in terms of the story you have to tell about yourself.
So, how long did it take you to complete the book?
3 years.
3 years. Ooh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Oh, it was 3 years because I was taking care of my mom during that time. I moved her in 5 years ago. She had dementia, and I had caregivers and her here. So I took care of her for 5 years. She died last at the end of September 2025. So there were lots of interruptions in the writing process. There was a house full of people coming and going. I didn't have my writing room anymore because I gave it to mom. And then I had the caregiver start staying all night because her condition continued to worsen. So,
Mm.
all the spaces upstairs in this house that I've used for myself, for my exercise and my creativity, my writing, were gone. So I'm down
Yeah,
here in the corner
yeah.
of the dining room now, which is where I moved myself to write. But that's the reason it took long. I kept stopping and starting, and also it was hard. It was hard because I was trying to frame my own difficulties in a way that people could understand, and I wanted them to see the interior process of it, not just the outside. So I had to do some digging, and I had to make decisions about how I was going to deal with the more difficult periods that I've been through. And I'm not a person who's wants to cast a great thing of blame to other people for my difficulties. So I found a way to share the stage with the difficult person and myself, and put it in a way that is not lambasting anybody, because I participated in my difficulties. I was Nobody dragged me to the center to be to have those difficult things. I'm there. I'm in it all the way. So, so there isn't a lot of finger pointing. There's
Yeah.
more like, okay, this is what I did. And I know I had a hand in it. So, that
Okay,
was,
And it comes across as being very honest with your audience. It's very
thank you.
honest. Here I
Thank you.
am. Here's what I did. Sure, sure,
That's
sure.
my goal. That was my goal. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you succeeded. You definitely did that.
Thank you.
Now were there any chapters that were difficult for you to write, to revisit? And I'm thinking about the chapter where you reveal that the man who you thought was your father was not your biological father. That
Right.
seems so personal and so difficult to write about.
It
Was it?
was.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. It was raw. It was painful because
Hmm.
for many reasons, but um, I was so um, my adopted father, Otto Nicholas Sr. I had such a great close relationship with him because he was my protector in a way, because in terms of the family, because I
Mhm.
was, I was the mistake that walked in the door. So, but
No.
he was there for me all of his life until he died in 1990. So that was very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah. And you continue being open and candid even about your marriage and divorce to singer Bill Withers. Talk
Hmm.
about that
That
for a
was
minute.
difficult, very. I thought, especially that uh, time of my life, I really had tried very hard to put it away, and I didn't want to look at it, I didn't want to hear about it, and I didn't want to hear anything. So I had to get into it. I had to go deep, and I had to figure out what are the most dramatic and the most telling episodes of that marriage that show the world where I was then,
Hmm.
without lambasting him. So there's I think my attempt was to equalize the pain. We were both in pain and we were both struggling, and unfortunately, we're struggling with each other. So,
Wow. And your sister, who was an Ebony editor, was murdered in 1980.
yeah.
How difficult was that to revisit, Denise, to go back to that?
It's the hardest thing ever. There is no difficult marriage, no finding out about your father. None of that matches the murder of my sister, nor do those other events have
Hmm.
the I don't know how to, how planes have that exhaust thing going on the back. That event changed everything, and it continues to change everything. So it was a matter of public news when it happened, so it wasn't that some people hadn't already heard about it. But I was able to go into it again, not only from my own personal point of view, but also to extrapolate to my mother's anguish at that happening, my stepfather's total self-destruction because he had Alzheimer's, and we think that her death precipitated it, or rushed it into being. So I was dealing with that in mom, and The other thing, the selfish part, which I did talk about, was I made a decision to not have children, and part of that was because I knew Michelle would, and then she died. So there were no children in my family. So my brother
Mm,
died while I was writing this book, and Michelle died before I wrote the book, and now it was just me. So my family has been shrunken down to, very few people, very few
wow.
people.
Wow. Okay. Your great friend Robert Hooks took you to meet another legendary guy, James Baldwin. What was that dinner like? What was that
Oh
like?
my
Come on,
my.
talk about that. Yes.
It was great. We went to a Spanish, I talk about it in the book, a Spanish restaurant in the West Village called El Faro. And it was a very popular restaurant in the late 60s in the village, Lower East Side actually. Well, it was the village, West Side. And so I had been there before because I love Spanish food. I love Spanish everything. And then Robert Hooks told me he was going to have dinner with James Baldwin, and I just said, "Can I come? Can I please come? Can I please come?" And he said, "Okay, okay, you can come." So I went, and I mean, I was just over the moon, over the moon. It was just a brief encounter. We had dinner, we chatted. He was delightful. He was smart. He was sensitive. I think the fact that I had been in the civil rights movement for the couple of years that I was there mattered to him. I mean, he was respectful of that part of my journey. And I was even then writing bad poetry, and I told him I wanted to write, and he encouraged me forward. So it was great. It was just great. It really was
Wow.
unforgettable.
Unforgettable for sure. Yes. Now, your big break came when you were doing a play produced by the Negro Ensemble Company. Is that where the reps from the TV show Room 222 first saw you, right?
Yes, yes, that was
Talk
on
about that.
stage at the Negro Ensemble Company on the Lower East Side on at the St. Mark's Playhouse is where that theater was lodged at that time. And the first production was Song of the Lusitanian Bogey, which was a piece about the Portuguese in Africa. And it was a very heady, intellectual piece, but it had a lot of emotional oomph. It had great music, great singing, and all of that. So one night on the stage, this is another thing I didn't want to talk about in the book. I went up on the lines and I thought I was going to take the show. So I, when I went up on the lines, usually when that happens on stage, an actor will throw you a word that they remember you saying, and then it breaks open and the memory comes back. Nobody remembered anything. Everybody went blank. They were so shocked when I went blank. So, I mean, I was
Okay.
saying, oh my Lord, how am I going to get out of this? So I had to continue. So, we went to intermission or what I think we had an intermission and back out on the stage. And I had to carry on as if that had not happened, even though I felt like I had red paint all over me because that was a disaster area. But I managed to get through it. And the next day I was called to come to ABC in New York and do an audition. And I was like, I don't know what they're doing. Why are they doing this after seeing me going up on the lines? But in the book, I kind of contemplate on it and I say maybe it's because my work was good before I went up on the lines, and I had to recover and continue till curtain. And I did. And I put everything I had into that continuation to try to make
Mhm.
up for the other. So I think that's what happened.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes. And now this is not your first book. You did a novel, Freshwater Road, a story about the civil rights movement that won rave reviews.
mhm.
Talk to me about that.
I think of all the things that I've written or even plan to write, that's the most important thing because it is a little fictionalized piece of our history in this country, and it's my moment to express my feeling about that moment in our history, which I thought was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. So in talking about the civil rights movement, we often think of it in the context of changing the powers that be or changing the white population. And I think now looking back, it changed us. It changed Black people as much as it changed anybody else. because it gave us that the drive, the passion to break the chains and to go forward again because we've been so beat down, so beaten down and over years and years and years. So that movement and all the young people and the older people who helped them, it didn't just wake up America, it woke Black people up. You know? So
Yeah, yeah. Now, you also said writing has saved my life. You've always wanted to become a writer and author. What do you mean by that? Writing has saved your life.
I think I think I had, excuse me, I think I always believed that I had something to say, that my take on life and on my journey and the journey of others, even the things I make up, would have some value to many people. It wasn't just me sitting here staring at the computer talking to myself. I wanted to talk to the world. And the best way to do that in your own words is to write, because I'm not doing that as an actor because I'm selling other people's words. So I think that I thought I had the intelligence, the passion, and the ability to speak in my own words. So
Yeah. Well, you're doing that. You're doing
thank you.
that, doing that well.
Thank
Doing
you.
that well. You were featured on the cover of Jet magazine when you were a teenager. How did that happen? Because this is before your TV success, right? Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. In high school, I was accepted into the National High School Institute at Northwestern University. So I was in Michigan, and this was in Chicago, in Evanston, near Chicago. So I was accepted to the program. It's a summer program for fairly gifted students from all over the country, and they bring us all into Evanston, and we study on a college level for 5 or 6 weeks in the summer. So when I was accepted into that program, I went to Chicago. And
Hmm.
then one of the tours was a tour to Johnson Publishing. Now, I was the only Black person in my section, so I was kind of shocked when they picked Johnson Publishing for us to go to. 'Cause every place else we went was lily white. I mean, like white, 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 white. So that's where somebody on the staff there saw this little black girl, this little light-skinned black girl trooping around with all these white people and said, "We got to put her on the cover of Jet magazine." So because that program only had, I mean, if there were 500 kids there, maybe three of them were black. So it makes you stand out a bit. So that's how that happened.
Wow, that's great story. Great story. Um, Looking back at it, were you aware at the time that you were making history when you were filming the TV program Room 222? Were you aware of the historic moment that was?
I wasn't.
No?
I don't think I was. I mean, looking
Hmm.
back, I was of the mind set at that time that the civil rights movement had changed the world. I was
Right,
delusional. I was absolutely delusional. But
right,
I think it seemed to me that it was right in line with everything else that was happening. It wasn't some departure. But it was a departure. It was new because it just it hadn't happened at all. So there were what, two or three shows that featured Black women in leading roles at that point, and that was it. But to have this kind of large cast that's fully integrated, not just Black and white, but Hispanic, and I think there were a couple of Asian kids in there. So it was really a little America in that high school, and it was a kind show. It was funny, but it was also compassionate. It was always looking for a way to solve a problem with kindness, and even if you could find a little bit of humor in it. But I know the network really wanted it to be a sitcom with ha ha ha, laugh, 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 laugh. But I think the producers and the creator wanted it to not be silly. They wanted to be funny, but and substantive, but also lightweight. A mixture. It's a great thing to try to do to entertain people with humor and substantiality at the same time. It can happen. Look at Richard Pryor. Look at
yeah, yeah,
tons and tons of people who can do that. It's not easy to do. to talk about the hard stuff and make people laugh at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Carroll O'Connor. Well, what are your memories about working with him? I'm sure there's so many, but Carroll O'Connor.
I know this is going to sound weird, but I think he was kind of like a second dad. I think he was dad to everybody because he embraced people. He embraced Howard Rollins. He loved his work as an actor. I saw the compassion and the love he had for Howard as a human being and as an artist. So when Howard had to leave the show, it depressed Carroll like crazy. He didn't want to let him go because he
Mm,
was such an incredible actor. But he was, I mean, I had been trying to get in the writing door in this business at that point for 20 years and had not even got a toe in the door. And when I went in to see Carroll about the possibility of submitting some story ideas, he took it on immediately. Immediately. I said, "You
mm,
have all these black characters and no black writers. That's not right."
hmm.
And he just looked at me. And I said, "I have a story." He said, "What's your story?" I said, "About the first black woman who tries to register to vote in Sparta, Mississippi." He said, "I'll buy it and you'll write it." That does not happen to black people in this town.
Does
It
not.
doesn't. It does not. It does
No.
not. But
Wow.
it was a beautiful moment. Beautiful moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before I let you go, let's talk about what's happening today, even with the civil rights movement years ago. People may want to get involved with activism, but fighting for racial justice in light of these ICE killings now. Just respond to that, please.
I'm just sitting around shaking my head. I'm stunned. I'm stunned by what's going on. And I'm frightened. Um, I it's as if we have to go back and start all over again. So many things are being turned back. I think for the part that hurts me, well, there's plenty of it that hurts me, but the thing of trying to erase Black history is probably the thing that makes me angriest. Taking sculptures and paintings and pieces of and artifacts down that show the truth of our history, to just dismantle that to me is it's really bad and unnecessary, totally unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So, how should we celebrate Black History Month? What should we do?
Well, for sure, we need to make sure we know Black history and have it at some of the things, the huge things, have them at our fingertips because we have to pass that information along to younger people. We have to do it. We cannot depend on other people to restore and comment on our history. It's on us to do that. And we have plenty of now Black scholars and historians who will do that. And we have to help them by sponsoring and supporting that work because otherwise we'll be disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Looking at the movie world now, have you seen the films Sinners?
I loved it.
Loved it too. Loved it
Loved
too.
it.
My Lord, yes. And now it has a record of Oscar nominations.
Yeah, what is it, 14 or 15 or something
Yeah,
like that?
16
Yeah, it's
movies, something like
huge.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
16, 16.
16.
16. All right.
Okay, okay. Yes, indeed.
I always thought that story about the blues guitarist at the crossroads. I remember reading about a real blues person
Mm,
in Mississippi who did this thing, who basically gave his soul to be a great blues guitarist. Now, there is a real man that I thought was in the core of that story, but they never mentioned it in the film. But I said, well, it's still a mimic of some parts of that story, I think. I can't remember
I
the name of
think
the.
that the singer's name was Robert Johnson.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
yes,
yes, Robert
yes.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And somehow or another, I don't know, but you're right. There was something about him that was a little bit unusual.
Oh, yes, because it
Okay.
was about selling the soul to the devil so you could be a great musician. I think that was the core of it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're almost done. Thank you. What's next for you? What's the next thing we can look forward?
Well, I've got a couple of more, maybe 3 or 4 more months of promoting this book. And then I'll take a little break and then I'll start working on, I think, what'll be my last book. So,
Any idea what it might be?
it's going to try to be a love story.
A love story.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to try.
Okay. Nice, nice, nice. All right. Well, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate you sitting with us today. And before we actually go away, I gotta do a quick little commercial. A quick
Okay.
little commercial. To Howard Sandifer and his wife Darlene Sandifer. They are the founders of the Chicago West Community Music Center. And this whole podcast comes from their idea. They said, let's have lively conversation with newsmakers and legends such as Denise Nicholas. So
That's
here we
great.
are today. So thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank them for helping out. And to viewers, please click like and subscribe. Please click like and subscribe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. You take good care. This was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay.